You're the superstar above me when the sun goes down, the one and only who could light this town. And when you're feeling like you're burning out, I will remind you that you're a superstar and you don't need a golden crown, 'cause everybody needs a hero now. And when the weight is like £1,000,000, I'll stand behind you, 'cause you're a superstar. You're the superstar and you don't need a golden crown, 'cause everybody needs a hero now. And when the weight is like £1,000,000, I'll stand
Alrighty, guys, we are here for another day of CSL Vainglory. My name is the Esruff, and with me, again as always, is Belligerent. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome in, everyone. We have a very exciting match here today between Utah and Cal State Fullerton. Great match. These two were faced each other off in the playoffs, in the finals, actually, last year.
Yeah, this is the finals repeat.
Last season. Yeah. And so Utah's off to a great start, 2-0 right now. They finished second last season. So a bit of a revenge game. Coming into this match against Cal State Fullerton. Utah says last year that they made it to the finals, but they were just doing it for fun when they joined the league. But this season they're taking it a little more seriously. So we'll get to see just how much they've improved and if they're ready to go. This might be a preview of some good stuff to come later this year. Cal State Fullerton currently sitting at 0-1. They are the defending champs. They did beat this same Utah team last season for the championship. They had a bye week in week 1, and in week 2, I guess they had some issues and it led to a forfeit loss. So they are technically 0-1, even though we're 2 weeks in. This is the final broadcast before the playoffs start, and I'm really excited to get going on this.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this matchup, and we're actually jumping into draft right now. And it looks like we're going to have... Who did I... Oh, there. Give me a second here. I do have it up in there. So they're going to be drafting right here, and it's going to be... Oh my gosh, I can't remember who's on what side now. I'm terrible at this. Give me a second here, guys. It is Utah is going to be on that A side for us to start.
And so Utah bans the Spa, which is a decent ban now. Saw really finding a place in this new meta, getting a buff in the most recent patch to his weapon power. So Saw is really strong at pushing lane, especially if you're able to couple that up with like a Lyra, and then even an early game hero like Koshka in the jungle. It can be really difficult to deal with. Followed up by the Black Feather ban. I love this ban. I think Black Feather and Rhyme are two of the strongest heroes out right now.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Saw with that late his damage scaling buff that they gave him so he can be more efficient late game really has made him a lot more popular in draft. And then Blackfeather and Rhyme, like you said, both very strong bruiser type picks. But it looks like the side of Utah is going to pick up the Arden first. Another kind of pick that I've been seeing a lot in solo queue and seemed really heavily relied on with that health buff for a lot of the pro teams as well. It's just a very highly contested pick for captain role.
Yeah, Arden definitely considered to be probably the strongest captain in the game right now. All the heroes experiencing an increase in their health stats, and Arden's Vanguard and so many of his abilities just focus in on how much health he has. So the barrier that he's able to give to his teammates from that additional health just makes him so strong. We do see a Catherine pickup on the other side. Catherine experienced actually a little bit of a nerf in this last patch where her heroic perk is only 1 stack per stun rather than 2 stacks like it has been when she was heavily favored in the pro scene. Rhyme comes out for the side of Cal State Fullerton, so that's going to be a tough team to deal with. Also followed up by Kestrel, who's one of the strongest laners in the game right now. And it looks like on the side of Utah, we're going to have Vox in the lane, Scarf in the jungle. Scarf also experienced a bit of a nerf to his heroic perk, which slows him down in the jungle role a little bit, being able to clear those jungle camps. So we'll see how these teams match up together. I kind of favor the side of Cal State right now. What do you think?
I'm liking the Cal State lineup. They do have those 2 big power picks in the Kestrel and the Rhyme, both very highly contested, doing lots of damage, and being able, like the Rhyme being able to take a lot of damage as well. Double threat line basically here. You have somebody that can tank and do damage, and then you have Kestrel, who is probably the top lane carry right now, just by far. Just the sheer damage output she can do with Glimmer Shot and auto attacks as weapon power is just almost unmatched.
Yeah, and so a lot of this match, I believe, for Utah is going to fall on Keyshawn, and we're going to have to see if he's going to be able to use his Vanguards at the proper time, use the gauntlets to engage or disengage at this point. Vox is a good pick into the Rhyme because he'll be able to dance away but it's going to be rough for this Scarf. It's going to rely a lot on the Vanguards, but with the Catherine there to provide those Merciless Pursuit stuns, they have a good chance of locking down this Scarf on Stanley the Manly.
Yeah, and we see the standard starts from both sides here going to both the carry and the jungle starting in the backs and doing their full jungle rotation. And now we're going to see the 3v3 kind of standoff in the middle. We'll see what happens here. Merciless Pursuit goes down, and the Glimmer Shots go down on the Vox. Lots of damage, but now Catherine's in a little bit of trouble. Her not being level 2 yet, not doing that jungle rotation. No Storm Guard coming out yet. But Vox too far in the front, getting hit more by more Glimmer Shots, forcing out the Flask. And now it looks like Rhyme wants to go in, and Scarf getting too close there. Just gets destroyed. It looks like a little miscommunication from Utah there.
Yeah, and a little mispositioning from Stanley the Manly. I mean, you just cannot allow a Rhyme to get that too close to you with your Scarf. You can't stop. You have to create that space between you before you start shooting off those Spitfires. And Super 64 with a great Merciless Pursuit helped lock down Stanley the Manly on this Scarf.
And another Merciless Pursuit coming out there. Keshel's not in the right position to hit the Vox with that one. He's very low in lane. Trying to trade off a little bit more here after getting that first kill. But like you said, getting hit by a Rhyme as a Scarf, if you get hit by his A at all, you're almost entirely dead. Unless you have quite a bit of defense or he's low already. Because of his slow and the damage it does, Scarf is just a little bit too immobile to break out of that once it hits.
Yeah, and if you let Rhyme get within auto attack range, and then he can root you down, and especially that coupled with the Merciless Pursuit, if Scarf mispositions in this match, it's gonna be lockdown city, and they're just gonna delete him every time.
Yeah, and I feel like that's Scarf's weakness now too. I mean, he used to be kind of the build-up poke and then just get those stacks on that Broken Myth and roll on in there as he loses the Elder Tree to Rhyme there. Rhyme, good play there. Almighty Enrique, the new addition to Cal State Fullerton here, getting that early steal off on the Elder Tree and giving his team a little bit more of an advantage.
Yeah, so only 3 minutes in and already just about a 1K gold lead for Cal State. So they are finding themselves significantly ahead after these first few exchanges. Although the lane is fairly even, Disciple only 1 or 2 behind Fudge right now, but definitely in favor of Cal State right now.
Yeah, they took the early fight, kind of depicts the pace of the game at that early Trant. If it kind of depends on who can get it, but in this case it was Cal State Fullerton getting it, but they also got that early kill. It allows them, they didn't do too much jungle invading because there wasn't really a jungle to invade, I guess. But they did take a little bit of that advantage, and we're just kind of going to see if they're going to try and push it or if they're going to try and play safe, as another Elder Trend is started by Almighty Enrique.
Yeah, Almighty definitely getting the early advantage, getting all of these Elder Treants. That's so much experience and gold going in his way. Fudge putting a lot of pressure here up in the lane.
Yeah, and this is the power of Kestrel that you see in the carry position now, where it's that Glimmer Shot does so much damage, but it's also the auto attacks. You almost feel safe at all times as a Kestrel. As a fight kind of breaks out in the Utah jungle, looks like they're trying to do an invading there with Scarf and Arden able to push them off. Vox did rotate down, but he's getting caught by a couple Glimmer Shots by Fudge. But it looks like both sides looking to disengage here as that jungle shop is spawned and they want to buy some items.
Yeah, and we don't see a whole lot of defense on either side right now. Both sides playing very offensively. Generally, at least on laners, you see some early defense, but none here. As the stun comes in, but the Spitfire and the Goop will push Super 64 back.
Yeah, the 3-man there, a little bit trying to go for stacks as a Catherine, but you can't go stacks into 3 people because he ends up losing almost 3/4 of his health there. But yeah, I think it's odd. The thing I feel like is the oddest right now is the fact that Almighty Enrique just picked up boots on this back. He's at 5 minutes and he just got boots on top of his Rhyme, and it looks like Keyshawn will be fine. He does use his Flask in lane, trying to hold this lane up for the gold for Disciple there. But that boots was kind of weird not to see, for me at least.
Yeah, usually we see Rhyme players build boots very early on because Rhyme really does require the ability to stick to his targets, and he struggles doing that if you don't prioritize the boots.
Yeah, I mean, look, he did pick him up finally, but he also picked up that reflex block too. You're saying no defense, but he did. Somebody finally picked up some as well. So it looks like he's going to go for that more tanky aspect here. I do kind of like this. I mean, Rhyme is good if you can snowball him with a bunch of damage, but I feel like he's also really good in being able to just be disruptive in the front line, giving that time for that Kestrel to do the damage they need to. And at the same time, he can also just wait for the Merciless Pursuit stun, and they can do that CC chain you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I'm a little mixed with the reflex block pickup because there's nothing to really reflex block on the side of Utah, other than if he's going to try to escape from a gauntlet as a fight breaks out.
Yeah, big Valkyrie hitting all three members there, but it is a 2v3. The fountain is popped by Super 64, but I feel like if Fudge was there for that fight, then it could have gone completely the other way because of that huge Valkyrie that Almighty Enrique landed on the entire Utah team.
Yeah, but with the reflex block, unless he's trying to escape from the gauntlet, there's nothing really to reflex block. And as a Rhyme, you don't necessarily want to escape from the gauntlet. You want to be there in the middle of the fight. So the early reflex block, I think. Oh, and we see Stanley the Manly go down.
Yeah, got caught rotating up into their own little mustache brush there, and he just gets Merciless Pursuited, and easy peasy for Rhyme there. Scarf with no defense yet is just gonna get pummeled almost instantly. He doesn't need his ult or anything, just destroys him really fast. And now they're gonna push this turret. Yeah. And they're gonna pick the fight too. The root gets off onto the Vox. Vox taking a ton of damage here, almost dead, but it looks like Fudge not wanting to go in because he didn't have his Glimmer Shot quite up, and with the Scarf coming back, Stanley the Manny gonna help push them off from getting that kill onto the Vox. But yeah, a little bit of a map awareness problem there. Face checking the brush for Stanley the Manly ends up costing him his life and a turret. And I do agree with you, though, with that reflex block you were saying. He probably could have gone for something a little bit better. I feel like even shield would have been better there, just because you mentioned, there's nothing really too reflex block. And a little bit of poke coming out here, as also as Kelsey Fullerton takes a little bit of the jungle. They only end up getting fronts, but they do that before they end up leaving.
Yeah, even if he is building towards the Aegis, the shielding would have been better off because he is facing that Scarf in the jungle. The reflex block not really doing a huge amount for him. But this has been a very back and forth game. Very early on, after those early.
Ooh, I didn't even see that. Is
my
that a
goodness!
1v1?
No, well, that was a Disciple was trying to go back up into the lane through the corridor from the Tri-Bush, and Fudge just nailed him with a couple of Glimmer Shots, and he was gone almost as quick as he showed up. So
that's almost the same exact thing Stanley Manly just did, and it looks like Utah's struggling a bit here with their vision game and trying to stay away from that. I mean, obviously he didn't face check the brush trying to just scoot around it on the side, but that's pretty much asking for trouble against a Kestrel that's sitting pretty with a Sorrow Blade and their first Tyrant Monocle already finished.
yeah, absolutely. Just a great play there by Fudge to make that pick on Disciple as he was trying to get back up into the lane.
Yeah, I feel like that's the benefit of Kestrel right now too, that burst damage, and it allows them the skill shot. I mean, the skill shot can carry you through a lot of the fights, giving people that have the higher skill cap and better mechanics almost an advantage when they play Kestrel. If they're able to do those Glimmer Shots and auto attacks, the damage is just really, really good, and it's kind of just all about hitting those shots, though.
Yeah, a little bit of a different build coming out here on Disciple on this box, starting with the Tornado Trigger, building it into a Monocle. He seems to be going for ultra crit damage here. Usually you see like a Poison Shiv and a Breaking Point, or even a Breaking Point and Monocle. The Tornado Trigger, not typically something that we see on Vox, but there is definitely math behind this build because you're getting all of the crit out of the Tornado Trigger and out of the Tyrant's Monocle itself. So going for a crit heavy build, which makes a lot of sense, especially since we see almost no armor except for on Super 64 right now.
And here comes Super 64 with the Merciless Pursuit in. They're doing a bunch of Glimmer Shots. They're hitting mostly Arden, but a bunch of damage going there. The defensive Gauntlet almost comes down, but it gets interrupted by the Valkyrie stun. What a play by Almighty Enrique, blowing up the Arden there after he stuns him out of the Gauntlet. That was beautiful.
That might be the only time in my life I've seen an Arden Gauntlet canceled by a Rhyme Valkyrie. That was an amazing play, even if it might have been on accident. I don't know if that was his purpose or if he was just trying to hit the many targets that were in that area.
And then Stanley managed to get blown up by the Kestrel there, kind of not escaping with the Disciple there on the Vox. Vox went to farm the lane, and he hung out in the jungle and got caught out again. 2 kills going over to Cal State Fullerton.
Definitely another dominating performance by Cal State Fullerton, having dominated the finals between these two teams last season. They're coming out very dominant here. It was a little back and forth in the beginning with the gold leads kind of going back and not necessarily going back and forth, but getting larger, and then Utah was fighting their way back, but now it's a 5K gold lead for the side of Cal State Fullerton. So, and Fudge with 3 tier 3 items already on this Kestrel, so the damage is not going to slow it down at all, especially since there is not a single piece of armor on the side of Utah.
And you see that no armor come into play right there as the Merciless Pursuit goes down onto Keyshawn on this Arden, and just viciously destroyed by Fudge with those crits. Glimmer Shot crits for over 600. Arden may be tanky with these new health changes and stuff like that, and his perk makes it so he takes a little bit less damage because he heals some of it back. But that's just a ton of damage. With no armor, there's almost no chance of him living there if he gets caught out.
Yeah, so Cal State looking very strong right now.
As Valkyrie gets dropped, ooh, that was good. Another stun into Valkyrie on top of the box, doing another kill. And the Glimmer Shot coming out, doing tons of damage. They're just so far behind. Utah unable to even do anything to 3 low health members of Cal State Fullerton with no fountain.
Yeah, and there's two different theories when you're in this position. Some teams believe that the only way to get back in a fight is to continue building more offense so you can win some of the damage fights. And other teams believe you need to turtle up, build some defense. And we see Utah definitely favoring the former of those 2 theories, just going for more and more offense. But these fights are almost over before we have a chance to say anything about them.
Yeah, exactly. It just seems like as soon as the Merciless Pursuit from the Super 64 on this Catherine comes out, he finds somebody that's even just a little out of position, and the damage from Cal State Fullerton with this Rhyme and with this Kestrel is just too strong for the no defense side of Utah.
Yeah, and right now it is definitely Fudge and these Glimmer Shots that are just outranging the side of Utah. I mean, they don't... Vox has 3 tier 3 items as well with the Tornado Trigger and Double Monocle, which means he's almost 100%. No, I take that back. He is 100% crit right now, but he can't even get in range to land one.
Yeah, exactly. He basically has to sit back and kind of hope, and this is where you were talking about trying to turtle and defend. Maybe they should have done that with their team comp. All I feel like they need, Vox normally doesn't come online till later unless he gets some sort of early advantage. Like, he has his core damage items now. Now he needs that defense so he can be able to dash around in fights to try and do some damage of his own. I just don't know how else they're gonna get it with being down 3 turrets already. That that choke point turret is just so huge to lose at such an early point in the game. Maybe if they would have tried a different strategy to try and defend, they'd be in a little bit better position here, rather than trying to fight and giving up all those kills.
Yeah, absolutely, and they were in a tough position from the start. Giving over 2 of the strongest heroes in the game right now. It is a bit challenging with the single band.
Oh, there's the stun and another one to follow.
777 damage on that 1 Glimmer Shot. That took Disciple to half health with 1 shot.
Yeah, and that was before the Merciless Pursuits landed, so you knew he was going to be locked down for at least a couple seconds there, even after he lost half his health. So there's almost no way he was getting out of that. Arden tried to save him, but nothing going there. As unfortunately, Stanley Manley tries to come in with that the Scarf ultimate and just gets stunned instantly, and it's gone, and that's
and
the ace.
Another 777 comes out. I feel like Fudge needs to hit the casino or something with all these 777s that are coming out from this Kestrel right now.
Yeah, he's making it work. The only one that doesn't take that much damage is the Arden. He still doesn't have any armor, really, but it's just a Kestrel show right now. He's just picking them off as they come down off the platform there, just waiting for another kill, basically, with this Kestrel. That turret doesn't even live more than a couple seconds. Catherine does die there trying to dive, and Vox gets away, but it doesn't look like anything else is going to happen there. Fudge is just content to end the game.
Yeah, Super 64 giving up the perfect game with that little dive there at the end, but it's still a very convincing, very easy win for Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, and it all came down to that early fight and then some poor vision control. It felt like early, just Utah just couldn't get their footing. It felt like they were just behind, and they kept falling further behind with just silly kind of little mistakes.
Yeah, and when you look at the item choices here at the end, on the side of Utah, literally the only type of defense on their entire team is Stanley the Manly has a tier 1 shield. Nobody even attempted to defend against Fudge on this Kestrel.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see, but it does happen quite often. I feel like even in solo queue games and in my own games that I play, you see Kestrels run away with the game. It's just all you really have to do is be able to land those glimmer shots on somebody with no defense, like in this case, and they're just deleted off of the fold.
Yes, and I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, maybe the pro scene has a little influence on some of these builds where you see some of the just uber talented players that go no defense and all these attack items, and I feel like sometimes they influence players into making what I consider some poor choices. The pro players that pull that off, that their positioning is like perfect. I mean, you can't have that type of build and not have good positioning, and I think it trickles down to some of the players that are trying to imitate them a little bit. And I think you just need to play a little safer and build some some defense on these heroes.
I agree with you full-heartedly. You mentioned the positioning factor, and I feel like that is the biggest difference between a lot of the players that we see in the CSL and those that we watch play in the VGA and stuff like that with the VIS and Challenger Series, whatnot, because their positioning is just so good they can get away with not having all this defense. Whereas Stanley the Manly and Disciple also both made mistakes in that game where they got caught out, and if you get caught out with no defense, you're just dead, and that's more of an advantage. You're just giving away to the other team.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think maybe some people miss is in a comp like that, if you're talking about at the level, the Arden, the captain, would have had a metal jacket, so he could have body blocked the Kestrel. You know, weapon Kestrel's glimmer shots are not going to do splash damage. So if you are able to tank some of that damage and body block for it, then you can keep those carries who don't have any defense safe. But the Arden didn't have even a tier 1 armor either. So if Arden stood in the way, he was deleted just as quickly as any of the carries.
Yeah, he was having a struggling time there. Even with all his health, he was still taking a ton of damage and dying super fast. I agree, he should have probably picked up some armor, but we do have to take in the fact that they were already behind and were struggling with not having items, so Arden would be part of that problem. You can only buy so much. He went Fountain Crucible. The Crucible is there to block the silence from the Catherine, but that's all all he really has. I feel like he probably didn't have enough money to get a metal jacket.
Yeah, I almost would have rather seen the metal jacket come out than the Crucible, because that silence isn't really going to stop the heroes that they had too much. I mean, the Scarf relies on the Spitfire, but other than that, Vox is not really an ability heavy type hero. But we see the Blackfeather and the Rhyme bands come out. Two bands that I am heavily in favor of whenever I play. These are the two that I make sure are banned or we pick up. Probably the two strongest heroes in the current game, with a Lyra being picked up on the side of Cal State Fullerton as their first pick. Lyra, still a very strong hero. The health stats also helping her because her sigil heal is based on the amount of health that she has as well.
Yeah, Lyra is probably up there with Arden as the premier, I guess, two captains that kind of get traded off a lot. I feel like in just regular queues all the way to the VG8, they seem to be very heavily prioritized. As it looks like they're going to pick out for Disciple here another Vox pick early on. When Kestrel's still up, that's kind of an odd choice to me. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it is definitely an odd choice when you have Kestrel and Saw, and I'm guessing that Cal State Fullerton is going to go with a Lyra Saw push comp here. Was we see the Vox and the Arden come out on the side of Utah again.
Ooh, and here comes Almighty Enrique with an Ozo pick, and it is the Saw locked in at the end of it. I am a fan of this comp so far for the side of Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, Cal State Fullerton knocked this draft out of the park. I don't even know what to say. I mean, if they play this right, like I want to see the Saw and the Lyra just go immediately to lane. Don't worry about farming backs together, especially in this meta where it's much more common to see people sharing backs or going for that Elder Treant. When you have a Saw and a Lyra up in your lane pushing, you have to make a decision. Either we're going to give up our first turret or and get the farm in the jungle, or we're not going to be able to share backs or get the Elder Treant. So a great draft coming out of the side of Cal State Fullerton, in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see if they decide to go with that push strategy. Saw push strategies were kind of popular before. You would see them, I would say, I'd see them late at night in queue every now and then. But it's definitely a push strat that, like you said, causes the other team to have to react to what you're doing.
Right. We do, however, see Fudge sharing back, so we're not going to get that instant push like I was hoping to see. And if you look over on the side of Utah, Disciple did go immediately to lane to try to counter that, but he's not going to see that early push. So this will give him a chance to push his lane up into the turret, although Super 64 is there to try to hold it, but possibly make Saw lose some farm here, even though he's getting some from the jungle as well.
As you mentioned that too, I feel like they should have gone with that push strategy, because I feel like Taka, especially with the build he started, Stanley Manley with a kind of an odd start. He looks like he's probably going to go Stormcrown first. Taka's a really slow jungle clear early on. If they would have pushed lane, I think they would have still had time to rotate down and contest at the other Treant. But I guess they just didn't want to do that in that instance. But something to think about when you're playing against the Taka is Taka has a really hard time at the level 1 jungle if you don't start double weapon blade.
Yeah, Taka does definitely have a hard time. I'm not in favor of going the full Storm Crown build, or the full Storm Crown item first on Taka, which looks like it's what Stanley the Manly is going to be doing here. I think going Stormguard Banner just to help you with that jungle clear is enough, and then you can immediately go into your Aftershock or your Shattered Glass, whichever direction that you choose to go. But it looks like he's probably going to be going that old kind of OG Storm Crown, and I would guess Aftershock after that build on Taka.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he decides, as it looks like fighting going on in lane. Saw's in a lot of trouble, but he's actually almost killed Disciple. Disciple barely getting away, and looks like they're finally going to pick up the kill onto Fudge there, actually. He was trading in a 1v2 there pretty well, while his teammates were invading the enemy jungle. And as that was happening, though, Taka did rotate into Cal State Fullerton's jungle to take back his own, take away their own jungle to try and trade that back. So it was actually a win for Utah in this situation, being able to pick up first blood there.
Yeah, definitely an advantage going over. Only thing that I would have that went kind of not in their favor is that Keyshawn got that kill on the Saw instead of just holding off for 1 second and letting Disciple get that final attack on Fudge. So they're going to get an earlier fountain, but that doesn't give the experience and the gold to Disciple like they probably would have preferred.
Yeah, it might have been a tough decision, though, because Disciple was really low. Like, I feel like if Saw turned on him, he could have probably one-shotted him. But here's that Saw push coming out right here, and the first turret's going to go down really quickly. Kind of a poor rotation from Utah. After getting that first blood, they didn't recall right away, so Disciple not able to actually defend the turret.
Yeah, definitely not the best way to take advantage of the early game that you just caused for yourself, getting that early kill, doing a great job of counter farming, which is something that you and I have seen other teams struggle to do when somebody's taking over their jungle, is do that counter farm. But Stanley the Manly did a great job of getting over into Cal State Fullerton's jungle and counter farming. But then they give the advantage right back, and they find themselves almost 2k gold down at the 4-minute mark.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal how that works. As we saw the Saw and Lyra going full push there, like we mentioned earlier, they actually had minion candies for all of their for at least 2 waves there, helping to push that turret in super fast, keeping those minions alive longer. giving Saw time to just melt that first turret. And they started to do damage on the tier 2 turret as well in that push, which is actually pretty surprising considering that we're not even 5 minutes into this game yet. This is the Saw strat that people, if you're not familiar with, this is what makes Saw so hard to deal with. If you're not sure what to do, he can just punish you early.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, the kind of the golden rule when it comes to a weapon power Saw is you want that first turret down in 5 minutes, and they're well ahead of that mark. So they're looking good here. Utah doing everything they can to try to stave off this push. I would almost prefer to see Stanley the Manly down jungling, because until
He
Taka
goes in
gets
for an
built up-
attack here, but he uses his flask right away to deal with it. But Arden dying in that fight in exchange there, unfortunately. He actually doesn't have a fountain yet. He got that early kill, and you mentioned he might get the fountain early, but it looks like Taka might go down here as well with the Ozo. A little bit of a dive, unfortunately for him. Taka able to go invisible there and keep himself alive. But the fountain is out for the Lyra, and there was no fountain for Keyshawn on the Arden there. A little bit of, I mean, maybe just not having time to go back because of the relentless push here. It's kind of a hard decision to make. When do you go get that fountain?
Yeah, well, he has it now because he got killed.
Yeah.
So they're good now. And, you know, Super 64 doing a great job, because Cal State's entire team was low, but he was still holding that fountain. And you see now that because of the Lyra heals and stuff, their team is all almost full health.
Yeah, and they can probably take another fight here. A little bit of aggro there from the turret onto Ozo, unfortunately. And Almighty Enrique bites off more than he can chew and ends up getting killed. And Sog took a couple turret shots there as well. And this should be a free win for Utah here. There's the double kill. Fortunately, Lyra has boots up to get out of there. But that's the fight they needed. A little bit of over-aggression by the side of Cal State Fullerton breaks the siege for Utah.
Yes, it does. And Almighty Enrique put his team in a really tough spot. I think, getting a little too cocky there, trying to take down that Taka in between two turrets, getting some turret aggro from that choke point turret. And you got to remember who you're playing against. It's going to be really hard, regardless of how low he is, for you to stay engaged long enough underneath the turret to kill off that Taka when you have Arden right there to give him those vanguards and things of that nature to protect him from that damage. So, and then once that happened, I mean, Saw is just too slow to escape. So Utah able to turn on them immediately and take advantage of that 3v2.
Yeah, it really broke the siege, gave them a couple of kills. They're still down here, but here comes the siege again. It looks like Cal State Fullerton has now bought the Bright Warlock coming down as soon as the Taka goes in. That's actually really impressive by Super 64. It's almost, I feel like, a rarity to see people use the Bright Bulwarks really, really well, and he's doing it, in my opinion, the best way possible, which is using it right after one of the heroes goes in, because Arden can't follow with a Vanguard there. As the fight comes in, the X-Retsu goes on the Saw really low, almost trading with the Vox there. It does die. Bangarang goes onto the Vox. Vox kiting beautifully here, almost staying alive, but it looks like that regen from the Ozo is going to keep him alive, and the Lyra in the background. This is a hard fight for Utah now. They really needed to keep Vox alive, but here comes the dive from the Ozo. Again, his Almighty Enrique going to do the same thing he did last time. It is true. He goes too far and ends up giving away the kill. I feel like they could have stopped there and turned on that turret. It's almost dead.
Yeah, and this turret, I mean, it's going to go down as soon as Saw comes within breathing range of that turret. However, again, like you said, Almighty Enrique just diving too far in, getting too greedy, and you're just not going to be able to do it, not with that Arden there. One thing I do want to point out about Disciple's build, he's going a different build this time. He's got the Poison Shiv, which typically I would say is good into like a Lyra comp and an Ozo comp, but when you have a Taka, you're already getting the Mortal Wounds from his X-Retsu, so I don't know that the Poison Shiv is necessarily the best or strongest response to this comp. It is going to help. He is going to be able to apply Mortal Wounds even when Taka is not there, but that X-Retsu is just kind of a built-in Mortal Wounds, and it's even a stronger Mortal Wound than the Poison Shiv is going to give you, so I don't know that the Poison Shiv is necessary, and it's very weak as far as weapon power is concerned, which is going to make it tougher for him to push back against the Saw, who now already has a Sorrow Blade and a Tyrant's Monocle, as well as a pocketed Infusion.
Yeah, I think the reason for it's kind of, like you mentioned, it's kind of standard to go the Poison Shiv against the Lyra. Maybe that's why he did it, but also I feel like he needed the sustain in lane because he was just suffering for a lot of that lane, and it does offer him that as the Bangarang comes in onto the Vox, a little bit deep again. He does end up getting healed a little bit. The turret goes down, but Taka went in on the Saw by himself. There was no Vox damage to follow up. Gauntlet comes out late, but I don't think Utah can fight this. They're all pretty low. There's only 9 stacks on that breaking point, and Ozo goes into the turret damage again and dies. They're still ahead on these fights, but I feel like they're just throwing away advantages now at this point.
Yeah, and it is definitely Almighty Enrique on the keeps throwing away these advantages. That is the 3rd time he has been killed by this choke point turret, and it's just at some point you have to stop. You can't keep giving. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3rd time.
Yeah,
you can't just keep giving these advantages away back over to Utah. It will come back to bite you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is going to give them what they didn't have last game, which is a little bit of a way back into it. A little bit of gold and things like that as Taka gets caught out there pretty badly and loses almost all of his health. Stanley Manley making a little bit of an over-aggressive mistake there. And Utah are going to have to fall back after trying to take some jungle away from the side of Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, and you know, you want to go back to item choices here. Stanley the Manly picks up the reflex block. I am disappointed that I don't even see an attempt to build an Atlas Pauldron on this Taka. I mean, Taka is one of the easiest heroes to apply Atlas Pauldron to a Saw, and he's not even attempting to build it right now.
And a fight breaks out as the Exoetsu comes in. Oh, lots of damage. Oh my goodness. Did you see those crits from the Saw right on the Disciples Vox? He died so fast. It felt like all 3 of those shots crit instantly, and he was just deleted off the map. Again, you mentioned having an Atlas Pauldron. There's no Atlas Pauldron on the Arden either, and there's no armor on the Vox again. So it's just a really hard place to be in when Vox is fully spun up, or not Vox, Saw is fully spun up on top of a gold mine like that. You're just asking for trouble rolling into that as we now see an Atlas Pauldron finally come out from the Arden. Another hero that's really easy to get on top of the Saw and use that Atlas. That could be game changing for the side of Utah, but like you said, Taka not going for that route, and we'll see if 1 Atlas Pauldron is going to be enough. I feel like 2 against the Saw is almost a necessity against a good Saw in a lot of instances, but in this game I feel like it could be their main way back into it.
Yeah, definitely a necessity against the Saw, and the other reason that I do like to see another one on Taka is because against this comp with Ozo, if Arden dives in on that Saw, Ozo's just going to jump right over him and jump on the Vox. Arden needs to be able to stay in the back lines with the Vox to protect him from this Ozo. And then if you had an Atlas on Stanley the Manly on this Taka, you have 2 times that you can apply it to Saw, or 2 different ways and better ways to protect your team.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of players may not realize that in some of the lower tiers, or even at the lower levels where we're saying CSL, where not everyone here is a pro. These are just everyday students that are taking the time out of here to try and win some scholarship money is what it is in the long run. And we saw Utah. Maybe they said they were trying to take it more seriously, but it seems like they're just missing a couple little things that might change their gameplay dramatically.
Yeah, most definitely. One other thing to keep in mind is one of the other strong things that works against the Saw besides Atlas Pauldron.
That's a great gauntlet as it comes in right there. Sorry to interrupt, but we got a huge fight breaking out. Oh, Taka gets hit by the Bangarang after he used the kite and unable to get out there, and now it looks like Angry Enrique is going to be able to dive again this time, but he has full team support. It doesn't dive all the way in, but almost dives in the turret again. Go ahead and continue with your point, though. Sorry
I was just about to say, the other thing that's strong against Saw besides Atlas Pauldron is a stun, and the side of Utah doesn't really have any stuns, but as I was mid-sentence saying that, Keyshawn drops a great gauntlet right on the Saw, but you don't want to rely on the gauntlet wall as your only form with a stun against the Saw. So there may have been a missed opportunity there in draft, especially with Taka getting shut down by the bulwark the way he does. Maybe maybe a Kashka or something as your jungler would have helped just a little bit more, but it's still, I mean, there's just not a whole lot that Utah can do against this. They're struggling. They're up in kills, but they're down 7k gold.
Yeah, it's brutal how much that objective gold has come into play, as well as the farm. almost there. It's 60 CS is what Disciples down right now compared to Fudge on this Saw. That's a ton of gold. And you think about it like that just for him. It's also that ambient gold that Arden's not getting. So that's even more on top of it. That's gonna hurt the side of Utah in trying to beat this Cal State Fullerton team.
And some people may hear us talking about the gold lead and not necessarily understand what that does.
Ooh, another fight breaking out. And Taka just gets deleted off the face of the earth walking into that Saw. No armor Taka still. We were talking about how we wanted them to have Atlas Pauldron. He doesn't have any armor. So Saw just having a field day when he came in on that. But go ahead and talk about that gold lead again.
Saw just waits for him to jump in and shoots him. With the gold lead, to put in perspective, Disciple has 2 tier 3 items, where Fudge has 4 tier 3 items, and that's what that gold difference does for a team. I mean, he has Sorrow Blade and triple monocle right now, and with the Atlas on Keyshawn is the only form of armor on the side of Utah. It's gonna be 2 or 3 shots, and it's gonna be over.
Oh, and he walks in, like you said, 2 or 3 shots. I think that was 5, and then another 5 shots come out, almost killing the Taka. Holy goodness. He 100% crit. I think he might have 95% crit with that build. I'm not positive on that because I know.
No, it's 105 because it's 35% per Tyrant's monocle. So
okay, I knew there's one that gives
105 right now.
So that's
which means every shot he is shooting is critting.
Yep, and here goes Taka again on top of it. 1, 2, and then he has to run away because he's already at half health from those 2 crits. Atlas tried to get in there. It doesn't look like he hasn't actually used it. He finally uses it at the end of his life, but he was by himself, unfortunately, so it wasn't going to really do much. That's the first time I've seen Arden even use the Atlas. And Utah is just on the back foot here. I don't think they have a lot to do to try and keep their hopes alive as this Kraken is pushing down. And the last Sentry Life is just taken out by Cal State Fullerton. This soft push is just brutal.
Sentry said, I don't want anything to do with this, and just walked by his team.
Yeah,
he's like, I am not helping.
And then the Saw crits just roll in. The first person to walk in is the Taka. He dies. Both turrets die. Vox running for his life as the Vein Crystal finally goes down. Cal State Fullerton, who haven't won a game this season due to some weird scheduling and maybe some issues on their own end up with the 2-0 victory over Utah, showing what they did in the last year's finals was not a fluke. They are here, even with a new jungler, to do business and do work.
Absolutely, and Utah just kept giving Cal State these hyper carry weapon laners and not building anything to counter it. And I think that there's some better picks into the Saw. I know that the Saw came out on the second pick, so really you only have the jungler that you could have really countered that with. But something like a Kashka that has a stun and has the ability to get on the Saw and apply Atlas Pauldron as well as stun him up could have helped them a little bit better than the Taka could have. I do understand where they were trying to go with that Taka because of the mortal wounds, because of the Lyra. But I just think there were some better picks there to try and counter the Saw. I mean, you talk about your typical Saw counter comp. It's always been like Catherine Celeste and a Kashka or something like that.
Yeah, the hard CCs is what you're talking about. The stuns that make him there. If he's spun up, it's great. But if you can't attack, then he's not doing anything. The lockdown on him is really important. And if you don't have that lockdown, we talked about it during the game, the Atlas, and there's only one on the side of Utah. And they didn't have the stuns to do it, and then they didn't build the items to do it, so they just kind of dug themselves into kind of their own grave.
Yeah, they really did, and in both matches, they prioritized defense towards the jungler, and I understand that Ozo can be a very dangerous jungler, but when you have a 4-item Saw and you have no armor, there's no chance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we saw you said a couple 2 or 3 hits. I think it ended up being 4 on the Vox and maybe 5 on the Taka. But still, with a Saw fully spun up, it takes no time at all for those extra 2 hits to hit and just gone. They had no way to engage. They just couldn't fight.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a very entertaining match again. Even though it ended up 2-0 in kind of dominating fashion, there were still some exciting things to watch in that match. So it was a great match to kind of end the CSL regular season on, and I'm getting really excited for these playoff matches.
Yeah, it was cool to see these two finalists from last year meet in the regular season because of how brackets work and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what all these other teams that we've been watching go through. Houston and the likes of them, and who else did we have win earlier in the year? We had, I believe,
we had the University of Missouri, Kansas City.
Yeah, they've had kind of a back and forth season, so it'll be kind of interesting to see where they end up. But I saw that Houston doing well, Cal State Fullerton showing their force here, doing really well, even though they had a rough start. It's just a great thing to see, and I'm looking forward to the playoffs, like you mentioned, which we will be having. It looks like next week. I'll show the calendar up there for us. We don't know all the teams yet, as teams are playing more. We're finishing, I think, some of their games this weekend, or that we will be doing the brackets this weekend. I'm not entirely sure on that, but as soon as we do get those out, guys, don't forget to follow us on Twitter. That's the easiest way to get the information. It's twitter.com/CSL Vainglory is the one you're going to be looking for our updates specifically, but you can also check it out at twitter.com/CSL. It's just a really big important thing that's going on for these teams that make it into the next stage of this tournament.
Yeah, and absolutely. And if you want to join our Discord community, you can just type !Discord in the chat, and that'll get you the link you need. You can also follow CSL on Facebook at facebook.com/C-Star League. And as always, we want to give nothing but gratitude to Twitch, the largest streaming platform in gaming, to support collegiate esports from PAX East and West and many more events. The CSL wouldn't be what it is today without the help and support from them. So make sure that you support Twitch however you can. And as always, thanks for joining us here on our Twitch stream.
Yeah, and just real quick, I did say that wrong. It is at C-Star League is our Twitter as well. That's a good place to look at. C-Star League is what you're looking for most of our links to different things. That is cstarleague.com for the website, and at C-Star League on Twitter. And again, thank you, Belligerent, for always being here, giving us that deep insight. Since you being a VG8 coach, it's really it's a pleasure to have you here, giving us what you see in these games and what potential these teams have.
Well, absolutely. I enjoy being a part of this. It's always fun casting with you. And again, moving forward, I am excited to see where this Cal State team can go, because they're probably the most convincing team that I think that I have gotten to watch and cast for in the CSL. So it'll be interesting to see how far they can go and if anybody can stop that monster that we just watched.
Yeah, even with that new jungler, Almighty Enrique, maybe a little bit of cockiness on his side, but still convincing performances all around. So yes, that will be it from us, guys. I just wanted to correct my misstep on saying what our Twitter was before you went and followed some random one. But as always, I am the SRuff. I'll transition this back over. I'm the SRuff on Twitter, and Belligerence is on there as well. His is a little bit more fancy because it's got numbers. But check us out on Twitter, and we'll see you guys next week for some actual playoffs. Hopefully. We'll see who gets to schedule them.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Have a good one, guys.